Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of The Mimic, a Korean horror film from 2017. The website City on Fire actually has a very nice plot synopsis that I'm gonna borrow here. So the plot of The Mimic sees a husband and wife relocate from the city to the countryside with their young daughter and husband's mother, who suffers from dementia, in tow with them. So we learn that some years ago, their youngest son went missing, and although it's never openly stated, it soon becomes clear that the mother has been clinging on to the hope of him still being found. The process of settling into their new surroundings is abruptly disturbed by the discovery of a body dumped behind a bricked-up entrance to a cave in the woods, and the simultaneous appearance of a mysterious, quiet little girl. When the little girl arrives on the family's doorstep, the mother decides to take her in for the night until they can visit the authorities in the morning. However, when she begins mimicking the voice of their own daughter, it soon triggers a series of spooky events. So one of the interesting things about The Mimic is that the supernatural entity that we're dealing with here is an urban legend, or perhaps a folkloric being in real life. It's called the Jung-ah, and seems to have certain characteristics that we would associate with a tiger. I especially like the noises this thing makes in the film, which are like a cross between like a growl and a purr. It sounds like a tiger, but it's like accentuated a little bit. It's pretty cool. And of course, it has the ability to mimic humans in certain ways, which is very interesting. I really like the sound design in this film. There was a Malaysian horror film called The Noise from 2015 that I think kind of failed to make use of its sound design properly. The sounds in that film were abrasive and shallow, whereas The Mimic has a lot of nuance to it that you'll notice if you're listening carefully, and a few things you might miss the first time you're watching it, or I guess listening to it, right? Right from the opening scene, though, it uses sound very well. I like the ominous use of wind in the film as well. So, again, sound design in this film is really good. Now, the abilities of this Jang-sang-bom are actually quite eerie and allows for some deception against the protagonists. There's also a sense of psychological manipulation that is involved by this entity when it targets someone specific. You know, most of the time it really does not simply attack and kill people. I'm sure if there's an American remake, that's what it will do. Remember in Pulse, the Kiyoshi Kurosawa film, where the ghosts really didn't attack people much at all. But in the remake, they were just like leaping out and just grabbing people and killing them. This film, The Mimic, again, this entity really does not attack many people throughout the film. It's almost as if it needs to like manipulate or convince its victims to do certain things in order to trap them. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of interesting. I like that. Also, the way that this thing presents itself visually is a little bit different and probably not what you're expecting. And no, there are no onryo ghosts in this film. There are no ghost girls in this. You don't have to worry about that. And as an added bonus, there are some cool use of mirrors in this film as well that I liked. Now, on the negative side, in terms of scares, there are a few jump scares in this that kind of irritated me just because I felt like they were not necessary. But really, there's only a small handful, like maybe 3 or 4 maybe in the film that I can remember. And there are a lot of scares in this film, so the jump scares only represent a little portion of it. So they're only a minor annoyance for me. The Mimic is also very nicely shot, good production values, very nice mix of different camera angles that capture the architecture of the home very well. I always like horror films that feature homes that are constructed differently from what I typically see in the United States, or at least in my neighborhood, right? The one in this film does that. It has like a lot of windows, which emphasizes natural lighting during the day scenes, and the building itself is very like long and spatial, which is pretty cool. Jung-ah is the lead actress. You'll recognize her from A Tale of Two Sisters. She played the nasty stepmother in that film. In this film, she's a much nicer person. She has built a respectable career for herself, both in film and television over the years. Very reliable actress. She always gives a good performance. She expresses emotion quite well, which gives the Mimic its dramatic, emotional core. She's really kind of like the core of the film. That's good. Her character is dealing not just with the loss of her son, but also with having to take care of her mother-in-law who has dementia, and that's pretty tough as well. Now, the director of The Mimic is a man who previously gave us the film Hide and Seek from 2013, which I enjoyed. Despite it having some problems in terms of script writing, I didn't really like the script writing at times in that film, but it was still good. I think The Mimic is actually a little bit better in terms of its script writing, but probably about the same in terms of overall entertainment value. Some people have a problem with the ending to this film. I mean, I thought it was fine, and it was also pretty consistent with the character development up to that point. Still, though, there's just something about this movie that's just holding it back a little bit from being a fantastic film. It's kind of hard to put my finger on it. I think that it's limited to a certain extent by its structure and the way things play out, which is pretty commonplace when we compare it to other like supernatural horror films. At one point, there's actually narration that explains, the genesis of this entity. You know what I mean? And the way that things play out later on has a certain familiarity as well. But, on the other hand, the film does revolve around a specific urban legend that does not get much attention in films. And a few of the shaman scenes have a distinct feel to them as well. But still, I think this could have done a little bit more to separate itself from the pack. But in the end, I do recommend The Mimic. It's a good quality horror flick, and it's entertaining. And it's currently available on both YouTube and Amazon streaming in the United States. And as always, we'll see you next time.